Being strong is incredibly important for overall health and resilience. But we talk to a lot of people who drop off from strength training because they think that they need to spend 4 or 5 hour-long sessions in the gym every single week. This is obviously really time consuming, but the truth is you can gain strength with just 2 sessions a week from the comfort of your own home, if you know how to go about it correctly. So we want to give you our Strength Side Minimalist Strength Program for free. This program combines body weight training with some supplemental weight training. The reason why we prioritize body weight strength training is because number one, it's accessible. Most of us don't have a full gym at home in our garage, but as long as you know the right way to approach calisthenics training, you can keep making gains from your apartment or a park down the street. Number two is weights are great for making you stronger, but they also add a lot of stress to your joints. A lot of people who make the switch to body weight training feel like it's easier to stay more flexible and free of injuries. We think combining calisthenics and weights can be really valuable for most people.
Remember that the best way to make progress is to stay consistent. And the best way to stay consistent is to get rid of barriers. You can get these sessions done in 30 to 45 minutes before the kids wake up or even on your lunch break. We made this routine for the person who has some experience working out and training, but wants to switch to a simpler approach with a body weight focus. And if you are a beginner, you'll learn ways to fit this to your level. This program is divided into 2 days, and each day only has 5 exercises. Where applicable, we'll show you ways to make each exercise easier or harder. You can also download this routine for easy access. It's the first link in the description box.
Strength day 1 is our volume day, which simply means we want to do higher reps. Our intention is to get somewhere in the 8 to 10 rep range. So A1, our first exercise, is push-ups. This classic push the ground away exercise is one of the simplest ways to gain strength and muscle in your chest, shoulders, and core, if done correctly. Most people think push-ups are easy and get really lazy on them. So begin on your hands and feet in a plank position with your core and butt muscles squeezed really hard. Resist sinking into your shoulders or spine. Now, under control, lower your chest and stomach to the floor while maintaining the same body line before pushing yourself back up to the start position. Common faults are arching your lower back excessively, raising your shoulders, and flaring out your elbows. Now, if you find yourself making these faults, then consider doing a regressed version of the push-up. One of my favorite regressions is to start in the full position on hands and feet, lower yourself as controlled as possible down until you let your chest and stomach rest on the ground. Now you'll put the weight into your knees and push back up through a knee version. Another great regressed version is to simply do an elevated push-up. This means you'll place your hands on a bench or another elevated surface, and you'll perform the push-ups with all the same cues that we talked about earlier. Remember, in this exercise, we want to get 8 to 10 reps. So if you can only do 4 or 5 good full reps on the ground, then regress yourself to another version that you could comfortably do that 8 to 10. Now, if you have a background in training, push-ups may be a bit easier for you, but you can up the intensity with one or both of these methods. Elevate your hands off the ground. Parallettes work great for this, so do gymnastics rings, which also give you some instability. Now you're forced to work through a greater range of motion for the chest and shoulders, which will add more fatigue and just make the muscles work harder. Now you can also add load to this exercise by wearing a weight vest or putting a plate on your back. If you combine hand elevation and a weight vest, you can make steady progress with just simple push-ups for years to come.
A2, goblet squat or toe squat. If you have some weights available, the goblet squat is a great option to build up strong legs and core. Grab a weight that you can hold comfortably and hold it at your chest with your palms facing each other. Stand with your feet about shoulder width apart and begin by lowering your hips down towards the ground, imagining you're trying to sit your hips between your knees. Go as low as you can before your form breaks down by rounding your back, knees caving in, or just generally feeling unstable. But in general, the deeper the better. And for some extra work, pause at the bottom. Then reverse directions back to standing by squeezing your butt. If you're finding you have a hard time getting low, place something under your heels to elevate them a bit. And you should also keep working on your hip and ankle mobility. do our free mobility routine. If you don't have access to weights, no problem. You can still work your legs by doing the toe squat. Stand with your feet about shoulder width apart, but you can explore different stances. Pull your heels off the ground, press into the toes, and squat down, trying to get your hips as close as you can to your heels while still maintaining a vertical torso. If you find these challenging in the beginning, place your hand on something like a chair next to you to assist with balance and control.
B1, bodyweight rows. Now, rows are great for developing your full back. You'll need a pair of rings, a suspension trainer, or a low bar that you could find at most playgrounds. But I've even seen people use a kitchen table for this that will pop on the screen right now. So hang onto your surface and lean back. The row is easily adapted to your level by your torso angle. The more upright you are, the easier it is. The more horizontal you get, the harder it becomes. But regardless of your torso angle, the movement cues are the same. Initiate the movement by pulling your shoulders back. Now drive the elbows back and behind you, bringing your hands close to your chest. Really squeeze your back muscles here before reversing the movement back to the hang. Common faults are raising the shoulders and flaring the elbows out too wide. You should only use your back and shoulders for this movement. So if you find yourself trying to get your hips and spine involved, then you should probably regress your torso angle. As the upright row becomes easier, you can move yourself into a horizontal body position with the knees bent. Next, you can straighten your knees, and to take it even further, you can always elevate your feet on a surface. You can always add a weight vest to any of these versions to keep making gains with rows for a long time to come.
B2, single leg RDL. Deadlifts are the best way to build up the muscles on the back side of the body, and you don't need a ton of weight if you work one leg at a time. Start in a staggered stance. The front leg will be our working leg. Keeping the front knee slightly bent, hinge at the hips while keeping most of your weight in that front leg. The back leg is really just there for balance. It's important to keep the back nice and flat here, no rounding. Keep hinging until you feel a light stretch in the hamstring. Then squeeze your butt in reverse directions, going back up into your starting position. If you feel confident with form and balance, feel free to take that back leg completely off the ground. If you want more intensity, hold a weight in the opposite hand of the working leg or 2 equal weights in both hands. If you're using weights, make sure they don't drift too far in front of your knees, as this creates leverage on the back rather than the hips. And to be clear, if you lift the back leg, you're gonna be working more on balance and stability. Whereas if you keep the back foot on the ground, you may be able to add more weight and work more on strength.
B3, the last exercise of this 3-exercise circuit is the side plank. You'd be surprised how much your core is worked from doing things like push-ups, rows, and squats. But those are all done front to back. We want to give the side of our core some work. Begin on your side with feet stacked on top of each other, elbow and forearm flat to the ground. Raise your hips from the floor and squeeze the side of your core to keep those hips high. Keep your shoulders stacked over each other and resist sagging into your side. If you're having trouble keeping the hips up, we can switch to the knee version. Bend your knees and now press your hips up through driving those knees into the ground. Another variation that you can use that isn't necessarily harder but different is to do the side plank on your hand. Follow all the same cues, but now drive the palm into the ground and straighten the elbow. For all versions of the side plank, make sure to press your shoulder down and away from your ear. Stay active and never sink into it.
Next up, we have strength day 2, intensity. On this day, we're gonna focus more on working harder, but for less reps. More like 5 to 8 reps. A1, pull up or chin up. Pull-ups and chin-ups are the ultimate way to strengthen the back. But we also understand you may not have the strength to perform them yet. And if this is the case, you may just wanna do the rows from day 1. But you are about to see some options to work towards your first pull-up. Chin-ups are when your palms face towards you, and pull-ups are when your palms face away from you. Typically, chin-ups are a bit easier. So if you can't do 5 chin-ups yet, we suggest just working on that. If you can do 5, then work both for a balanced physique. Begin by holding onto a bar or rings with the shoulders relaxed. Tense the core to prevent arching of the low back. Pull the shoulders down away from the ears, then pull your chest towards the bar. You may not get your chest all the way to the bar, but this image is helpful as it will keep your chest open and prevent you from rounding your shoulders. Pull as far as you can and squeeze into that top position. Then slowly lower back down into the dead hang. Don't use your legs for extra momentum. Try to just keep your body nice and stable. At the top of the rep, it's tempting to roll the shoulders forward and push the head forward to try to get more range of motion, but don't do this. It will limit your back gains and potentially lead to injury. If you're still working on getting to 5 chins or even your first one, use some assistance. You can stand on a box or lower the rings in order to keep the toes on the ground. Ideally, when you stand up tall, your hands are near your chest. Use your feet as much as you need, but over time, try to use them less and less. You can also use a band for assistance. You can use a resistance band to get your body used to doing full reps. And if you're really close, using negatives, where you only do the lowering portion, can get you that last bit of strength to your first rep. If you can do more than 8 reps, you're ready to start adding some weight. The 2 best ways are a dip belt or a weight vest. When you add weight, start small. The added weight shouldn't ruin your form, but weighted pull-ups will add a lot of muscle to your back.
A2, goblet or toe squat. On day 2, switch to the opposite version of the squat that you did on day 1. If you don't have access to a weight for goblet squats, then just continue to do toe squats. Because this day is our lower reps, more intensity day, on goblet squats, you can use more weight, and on toe squats, you can slow down the lowering portion to really challenge the muscles to work harder.
B1, dips. Dips are the most accessible way to build up strong pecs and triceps. You'll just have to find the right setup. What you'll need is 2 platforms or bars of equal height. And if bodyweight dips are quite easy, you can use the rings to really challenge yourself. Start with your elbows locked and shoulders down, away from the ears. Lower towards the ground and allow your torso to lean forward as you lower. Try to keep the chest open. Don't let the shoulders roll forward. Stop with about 90 degrees bend in the elbow and reverse directions. Throughout the entire movement, we really want to focus on keeping the shoulders down and keeping the core engaged. Dips are harder than push-ups because you have your whole body weight. Your feet are off the ground. If these are too challenging and make your shoulders feel uncomfortable, then feel free to keep working on push-ups. But here's some ways to make the dip easier. Use something lower so that you can keep your feet on the ground. All of the same cues still apply. You can either put your toes on the ground with your knees bent, or keep your knees straight and have your heels on the ground in front of you. You can also use a resistance band for assistance. They can bridge the gap to get you to your first body weight dip, just like in the pull-up. And also just like in the pull-ups, if you're really close, do some negatives or just the lowering portion, and that could give you that extra strength you need. If you really want to challenge your stability and get an extra pump in the chest, the rings can be a really challenging progression. And if you're starting to crush your body weight dips, throw on some weight by using a weight vest or a dip belt. Or you could do weighted ring dips, the ultimate progression.
B2, hamstring curl. These can be done by sliding your heels on a hard surface with socks, or you can use some sliders under your feet. Or the slightly more challenging version is to put your feet in a suspension trainer or gymnastics rings. These work the hamstrings through bending the knee, which most people don't have in their exercise routines. For the floor version, start by lying flat with your knees bent, heels dug into the ground. Lift the hips and push the heels away from yourself until you can't go any further. Now reverse the motion by pulling the heels back towards your hips. Try to keep your hips high and really pull through the back of your thighs. For the suspension version, start by lying flat on your back and placing the arches of your feet at the bottom of the rings. Lift your hips and put yourself in a nice straight body line. Then pull the heels towards your butt and then extend them back out. The closer you keep your hips to directly under the rings, the easier this will be. The more you move your hips out in front of the rings, the more challenging it will be. No matter what version you pick, hamstring curls are always very challenging in the beginning because most people haven't used their hamstrings in this way. You may get some cramping and be extremely sore after. So try to take it easy in the beginning and then work up.
B3, Bodyweight Reverse Hyper. If you've never done these before, you will be surprised by how much this works your glutes. Lie face down on an elevated surface around hip height and have your legs hanging off. Lift the legs as high as possible behind you while keeping your core engaged so you don't arch your back too much. This will ensure you're working your glutes. Pause at the top for at least 1 second and then lower back down. Try not to use momentum with this one. It's tempting. And if you want to increase the intensity, try squeezing a dumbbell between your feet or using ankle weights. And if it feels like it's too challenging in the beginning, just bend your knees and work on straightening them over time. It's amazing how much you can keep getting better with just these basic movements. If you look at these exercises, they're just variations of a push or a pull for your upper or lower body. Whether you're busy and you need to get a full body workout in where you can, or you have aspirations of moving into higher level calisthenics skills in the future, you won't regret laying a rock hard foundation.
This is the full routine. You can take a screenshot of it now, but for even easier access, you can download the full free routine by following the first link in the description.
These days, a lot of people ask us what our training routines look like. Most people are surprised when I tell them I only do strength training 2 to 3 times a week, but I've made plenty of progress with only 2 strength training sessions a week. And what's great is this leaves me plenty of time to train other movements, flexibility, and of course, just rest and recovery. With that being said, you can do this program 2 to 4 times per week, whatever fits best in your schedule. If you decide to do an odd number 3 times a week, always do your sessions in order, meaning week 1 is day 1, day 2, day 1. Week 2 starts with day 2, day 1, day 2. We designed this program to be easily combined with our free mobility program. Put together, this is essentially the strength side, full body, strength, and mobility program. So you can get stronger while still maintaining and improving joint range of motion, which will make you feel really good. If you want easy access to both programs without having to skim through the full videos, then click that first link in the description box. If you're feeling inspired to start this routine, but you're thinking maybe I need a pair of gymnastics rings or some parallettes, then check out our videos on minimalist fitness equipment and pull-up bars. So comment below, have you used a strength training program in the past? Are you excited to start this one? Let us know. Like the video, subscribe to Strength Side. I'm gonna go get to training.